I watched Demi Lovato's Child Stars last night, and it made me realize just like how different, yet the same, our childhoods are. I might have been on Australia's biggest sitcom, but it is not even in the same league as Disney or Nickelodeon kids. It truly did make me feel like the small shrimp in the big tank. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Monahan, and welcome to this week's episode of The Shrimptank. If you have not seen it yet, Child Stars has just been released on Hulu, and it's already the #1 show of the week. I absolutely love watching any documentary that's made about or by former child stars because, as one myself, there's that kinship there. But I also love analyzing the differences between what it was like growing up in Australia versus what it was like growing up as a child star in America. And while the concept is the same, they are also completely different. The other big difference too is I am slightly older, as in old enough that when I grew up and a lot of my other childhood actor child friends grew up, we were around before social media. And I think that that makes an incredible difference between what it was like for us and what it's like for kids now. Like, I don't think you can even really compare the two. Now, some of the things are the same because we all grew up as kids on a TV set, which means we were working on TV and we also had to do schoolwork. And then there was all the things like bullying and pressures and like the local kids that you actually saw in real life. Like, I had kids at my school that were really fucking mean to me just because I was an actress. And it turns out to me and a bunch of the other kids over there also had the same bullshit where they had kids who were just jealous or made fun of them. Like, even Lady Gaga just talked about how there was a whole Facebook group about people being mean to her. But at least that was just in real life. I didn't have to also see it on the internet because it wasn't really a thing when I was a kid. Honestly, I didn't have to deal with social media until I went public about my abuse on the TV show, and then I understood what it was like to be public and in the public eye and on social media and the internet, and not just the news and magazines, which we had as kids, which were heavily curated and somebody was there in charge of it. But the internet and social media is a free-for-all, and you have to be really strong to be public in social media because people will eat you alive. The other difference too is while Hey Dad was Australia's most successful sitcom and we rated like more than anything else on Australian TV, and we were quite successful internationally. We were shown in, I think, 36 countries around the world, which at the time was a big deal. And we were dubbed into other languages. Other countries bought the rights to make their own versions of the show, but I could still travel internationally and nobody knew who I was. I mean, if I'd gone to Germany or Italy or France, maybe someone would have known. But I ended up going on student exchange to Honduras, specifically because Hey Dad was not shown there, and I could just be a kid. I could just be a normal, everyday teenager, and nobody knew who I was. But then you think about kids who were on Disney and Nickelodeon, like Demi Lovato or Ariana Grande or Miley Cyrus, or any of those kids who came up through the Kid Rock era, or any of those newer shows that came out in like the 2000s, about that time that Nickelodeon and Disney really tapped into the kids market. Those kids are global. Like, they cannot travel anywhere in the world without people knowing who they are. And I don't know, honestly, if I could deal with that. As a kid, my best friend and I went on a trip to the US. We got to go to Disneyland. We traveled all through, Alabama for some reason. But we went everywhere, and it was great. Like, nobody knew who I was. And we were staying with her relatives, and it was funny because they actually were like, my niece has been on TV. Have you ever been on television? And I wanted to be like, yeah, she was like a guest star without a speaking part on my show. But I didn't say it. I just let it go because it was great. It was amazing not being known and just being able to have fun. But you can imagine any of those kids on Disney or like Nickelodeon being able to come to Australia or go to Germany or anywhere else without everybody knowing exactly who they are and just harassing them. And now that you've got social media, I mean, we had paparazzi, I guess, back in the day, but like nobody gave a fuck about paparazziing me. But I can't imagine like what it's like to be a kid going through puberty, you know, or trying to have your first boyfriend or having your first, you know, sexual experience and having it end up on the internet. I mean, that is a whole different level of fame and crazy. And all the kids now who want to be famous, like back in the day, we wanted to be an actor or a singer or a dancer. And I see a lot of kids now who simply just want to be famous, just to be famous for famous sake. But I don't know if they could truly handle what fame actually is. I think one of the other biggest differences between Australian and American child actors is also the salary. Because at my very highest level on my last year, I got a pay rise of $13 a week, and I made $813 a week. Kids in the US are making that like a day. I mean, that's their per diem. Kids are getting like residual checks that are bigger than what I earned in my entire lifetime on television in Australia. I mean, you can't compare those two. I mean, they're starting to pay better in Australia now, I think. But back then, it wasn't great. Like, I don't think it still compares. But even with the salary differences, it turns out that what a lot of us do have in common is shitty parents that steal all of our money. I was paying rent and board when I was 12 years old. I paid a car payment so my mom could drive me to work, and I also paid for her to drive me to work. Which, on the one hand, you kind of get, because like as a parent with a kid who's acting, your job is to take them around and to be on set with them and to do all these things. But I broke my leg when I was almost 13, and production fired my mother, so she didn't have to drive me anymore. It also meant that I no longer had a chaperone on set. At least in certain states in the US, not all of them, just certain states, they have a Coogan law, which is essentially where they take a tiny percentage of what you're earning and put it away so that you have something when you turn 18. Now, there are ways around it because parents will form corporations and pay themselves out of that, and they can still take the majority of your money, but for the most part, hopefully you might still have something when you turn 18. And I don't believe Australia has any kind of protections like that. Now, I am always jealous of my American child actor friends because there was bunches of them, and most of my child actor friends are actually American kids that I met after I went public with my abuse in Australia and I was living in the US. And I met Paul Peterson, who was also a child actor back in the black and white days, and he had started a charity called A Minor Consideration, and its whole focus is on assisting former child actors and how to transition and changing laws and doing all this great work. And he introduced me to a whole group of child actors, and like I love when we get together because it's this massive group of kids who, I mean, you know how you see war buddies that have like this bonded thing that they just get each other and just understand each other. And it's the same with child actors because you've gone through an experience that very few people can relate to or understand. And in Australia, I mean, we just didn't have that. There wasn't that many of us. There was only a few of us, and we were never really in the same circles. I saw Kate Ritchie at Channel 7 Christmas parties, or if we had to do a network promo, or if a magazine wanted to do a story about kid actors, and they found 3 of us. But like Home and Away were mainly teenagers and older. Neighbors had a couple kids, but they were in a completely different city. So I really did not have other child actor friends growing up. And I think that would have maybe been a lot different if I had, because at least somebody would have understood me. Otherwise, it was kind of lonely. Or maybe it was a good thing, because instead of being in a bubble of other child actors, it forced me to go out and just be a normal kid sometimes and just hang out. And so I didn't really get those airs and graces that maybe some kids in a Hollywood bubble who are earning a fuck ton of money and only hanging out with other celebrities get into this little world. And, maybe that fucks them up more. I don't know. It's like so similar and yet so different. Now, I do love that she interviewed people from JoJo Siwa, who has gone up through, like, she is an internet reality star who then went to Nickelodeon. But then they also had my personal favorite child star, besides Shirley Temple. We all love the original, Shirley Temple. But they had Drew Barrymore, and I just got to see Drew Barrymore in Sydney like a month ago, and honestly, like, if I could hang out and be besties with any other former child star, it would be Drew, because I just love her to bits, and I love that she went through, like, all the shit. All the crazy shit. She was in rehab by the time she was 12, and now she's so normal, and she has her own talk show, and I just love her experience and her ups and downs and how open she is. And so I love that in this documentary they talk about, like, all the different age groups. But I do find it fascinating how, like, pockets of people can have such similar yet such different experiences. And I'm sure, like, every country, like Italy, Germany, everywhere where they have their own television market has their own experiences that we all universally understand, because, I mean, it is weird being a kid actor and working from such a young age and having to be an adult. But also completely different experiences, because except for the American kids, we are probably all in our own little bubble where we are, the big fish in a small pond, whereas really we are the shrimp in the big tank of television. But if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend that you go and watch Child Star on Hulu. I'm not getting paid for this, but I honestly, I love every single piece of content that is created by other former child actors and child stars, and I will consume all of it. And I know it's like a weird bubble that maybe other people outside don't get that. It's probably very niche, but it was really, really good. And so please go support other child actors and go watch it, because it really is thought-provoking and it's really well done. So huge congratulations to Demi. I'm so proud of you, and hopefully everybody watches this and that you get, all the love that you need. And I'm really proud of you. Also, thank you to all the other child stars who appeared on there and gave their input and let all of us, discover that and hear all the different takes and versions of what it's like. Because I think people really do have this romanticized vision of what it means to be a child actor. And I love that these documentaries may help people understand that it's not all red carpets and parties and glamour. And I think the last few years where we've heard kids from Disney and Nickelodeon, and my story, that it's not all sunshine and roses and red carpets and fun. It's not all amazing. I mean, it is not show play or show fun. It is show business. And it is definitely a business. And even if you are 3 months or 3 years, or 13, I mean, they will work you like you are an adult. And that's just the way it is. And I really hope more of these shows come out and show all these kids who just want to be famous that it really is work, and that it is not just the glamorous lifestyle that they think it's going to be. So, shrimp out. Go watch the documentary. I hope you enjoy it, and come back next time for more thoughts from another former child star.